Okay, this is the request to retest. Module 4, quiz number 1, topics A through C. This is problem number 2. Mr. Shazam used 10 buckets to collect rainfall in various locations on his property. The following line plot shows the amount of rain collected in each bucket in gallons. Write an expression that includes multiplication to show how to find the total amount of water collected in gallons, then solve your expression. Okay, so first thing I need to do is write an expression that uses multiplication to show how to find the total amount of water collected in gallons, and then I need to solve my expression. Sometimes it's difficult to see the actual values in a line plot unless you label them. The easiest way to figure out what these sections are is to count the number of lines between the 0 and the 1. So let's start at the 0 and see how many jumps we need to make. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If it's 8 jumps to get from the 0 to the 1, that means we're in eighths. So if it's easier for us, we can go through and label. Now we could go through and label this 1/8, 2/8 through the whole thing, or we could just count and only label the ones that are shown here. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. This X would show me 5/8. 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. Now I'm going to make it an improper fraction because it's above 1. 9/8, 10/8, 11/8, 12/8, 13/8, 14/8, 15/8, 16/8, 17/8, 18/8, 19/8. Now I could go all the way through doing 1/8 all the way up until 24/8, but that might get a little bit too busy visually, and I might lose track of what numbers I'm supposed to be looking at. Now remember, in a line plot, each one of these X's counts for one piece of data. In this case, it's one bucket of rainfall. So I need to make sure that every time I see one of those, I write down the value. So for this one, the value would be 5/8 for that bucket. Here I have multiple X's, so each time I see an X, I need to make a copy of that 10/8. So I would have 10/8 4 times here. It's asking me to write an expression that includes multiplication. Here's the way I would do that. I start at my first X. It's worth 5/8. We saw that when we labeled, so I'm going to write 5/8. I'm going to put an addition sign because I want to add the rest of my data. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these data points. So I'm going to use multiplication so that I'm not doing repeated addition. 4 times 10/8. And I know you're a little worried because it's in the middle of this number sentence, but don't worry because the rules of the order of operation tell us we have to do multiplication first. So those will still stay together even though there's no brackets. Next, we're going to add our next piece of data, which is 2 pieces of data that are both equal to 3/8. So 2 times, 13/8. 2 sets of 13/8. So we have 2 times 13/8. We're going to add on some more. Now we're at 17/8. So let's add one thing of 17/8. Keep going. We have 2 copies of 19/8. 2 times 19/8. There is an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign, so it doesn't become an equation yet. But they're asking us to solve our expression. In order to solve our expression, we must make an equation. So here's our expression, and here's our equation. Now what we need to do next is to start with our multiplication. We're going to start here with this 4 times 10/8. But I can't just get rid of this 5/8, so I'm just going to bring it down. 5/8. Here I need to do the 4 times 10/8. Remember how we were doing it in the first step? We did 4 times 10 above 8. So what's 4 times 10? 4 times 10 is 40. We keep the denominator of 8. Put addition to add the next piece of data. We're doing 2 times 13/8. So just like we did in problem 1, 2 times 13 is 26. We keep the denominator 8. Move to the next piece of data. There's only one here, and it's 17/8, so I'm just going to bring it down 17/8. Add our next piece of data. 2 times 19. Well, I might not know 2 times 19, but I know 2 times 20 is 40, and 19 is 1 less. So if I have two groups of this 1 less, it would be 38. If I didn't know that, or I couldn't do that way, I could always do standard algorithm on the side as some scrap work. Equals. Okay, now this is getting a little bit tricky because I've got some bigger numbers here. I'm going to try to make some of those bigger numbers into mixed numbers now instead of improper fractions, because that might help me to add them up a bit more quickly. Now 5/8 is not an improper fraction because 5 is smaller than 8. So I'm just going to bring that down again because I'm not doing anything with it quite yet. Okay, 8, how many times does 8 go into 40? I think to myself, what times 8 equals 40? What times 8 equals 40? Well, let me try my 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. That's what it is. 5 times 8 equals 40. So this is 5 wholes now, a whole number of 5. And I don't have any 8s left over. Okay, what about how many 8s go into 26? Well, 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3, that would be 24. That's the closest I can get. 3 is a whole number. 24, and I got to get to 26. 25, 26. That's 2 more, and they're 8s. 17 8s. Well, I remember that 8 times 2 is 16. So 2, and to get from 16 to 17, 1 more 8. Okay, 38. 38. How many 8s go into 38? Well, 8 times 4 is 32. 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Oh, and 6 more 8s. Okay, we're almost there. Our next step is to add all the whole numbers. I have a whole number 5, a whole number 3, that makes 8 together, plus 2 more makes 10, plus 4 more makes 14. Okay, 14 as whole numbers. Now I'm going to add up all the 8s. 5 and 2 makes 7, and 1 more makes 8, and 6 more. 8 and 6, that makes 14. Ooh, that's an improper fraction. I can get another whole number out of that. Well, I have 14 wholes so far. How many 8s go into 14? That would be 8 to get to 14. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 6 8s. If I add those together, 14 plus 1 more gives me 15, and 6 8s. So how much water did he collect? He collected 15 and 6/8 gallons. Now I can simplify that because they're both even numbers, so I can divide them both by 2. So I ran out of a little space, so I'm going to use up here. Remember, we can draw arrows if we run out of space to show where our thinking is going, so the person looking at our work can follow. I had 15 and 6/8. If I divide by 2, because they're both even, I would get 15 and 3/4. So how much water did he collect? He collected 15 and 3/4 gallons.